Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pharmaceutical Soccer. It's so exciting to be here. This is the first time this year we get to talk about a win right off of the bat. I'm very excited for this. I hope Clay Trainham and Valera Shabila are just as excited as I am. Uh, Gentlemen, how was your weekend? How did you enjoy the win? I know Clay unfortunately was not there. So is this going to be the new norm, Clay?
I mean, unfortunately, Nashville's record when I'm not there at home is pretty bad. So I feel like this isn't really much of a tell. But it was a fun thing to get during a show that wasn't exactly the most uplifting, although it was an enjoyable show. You know, it's fun to get updates during that during the musical. So my weekend was very cultured. I went to the Ryman on Friday night to see Gary Clark Jr., which was great, and Grace Bowers, who's like 18, who shreds, by the way. And then I went to see Hadestown on Saturday, which I enjoyed, but it's a bit of a downer. And then on Sunday, this was actually kind of fun. I was at Lipscomb. I was at Allen Arena at Lipscomb as they went back to the NCAA tournament, and that place was packed, like standing room only for the Lipscomb North Alabama conference title game in the A Sun, which was a very good time, and Lipscomb won, and they're going to the NCAA tournament. So I had a pretty packed weekend with mostly good news, and then Nashville SC also won, so that was great.
Yeah, it's a good weekend, I guess. Overall, just a normal whole weekend for me. Nothing too crazy. I did want to say I had a culture weekend, but maybe a little different than Clay's. Different kind of culture. So it's like a yearly. Okay. First of all, we never talk about this on the show, but there are multiple NSC players who observe Ramadan first and foremost. So let's start with that. But also, it is currently going on, and Ramadan is like a holy month for Muslim people all around the world. They fast from food and other things, and kind of, it's like a more hardcore Lent if you're unfamiliar. Now, I'm not Muslim myself, but I do reap the benefits of Ramadan every year because I know enough Muslim people that they invite me to eat with them every year. And Sunday, Sunday night was certainly one of those days. So I went and ate a lot of food with some great friends, and I didn't have to fast because, again, I don't do that, but they did. And I just went for the food portion of the day, not the rest of it. So it's really like a win-win for me.
I mean,
The
kind of sounds like a win-win.
Yeah, I was to say the uh, MTSU's best basketball player this year, Isam Mustafa. He had one of the best basketball performances in MTSU history, and he is observing Ramadan as well. So he had 30 and 20 last Thursday, which was insane. So anyway, a shout out to
Well, I
Yeah,
MTSU.
and for those wondering, Hani Mukhtar has been pretty vocal about that in previous years, and I'm assuming he's doing it this year as well. But that's something he does every year, and he plays while doing that. And sometimes he needs to take a quick break to maybe get a bite or drink some water for the first time of the day. But Hani Mukhtar is one of them, and I don't know if I don't know if I'm allowed to say who the other ones is. This is a very personal thing, but I know Hani Mukhtar has been very vocal about it. So we'll wait and see if any of the other players. There might be a story that I'm doing with that. So we'll see.
think it's one of the cool things too that MLS is very much a part of, where they specifically have breaks for the players that are practicing Ramadan specifically. I remember they were talking about it over the weekend at some point. And I just thought it was super cool, just because it very inclusive for different kinds of faith and everything throughout. So shout out to MLS for actually having that as a part of their schedule. I did not a lot this weekend. I went to watch the Washington Capitals play my Detroit Red Wings at which was fun, except the Red Wings lost. And yeah, that's pretty much what I did besides watching soccer and um, doing that. It was fun. It was a good weekend, especially fun to watch Nashville SC win 2-0. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit more in specifics about the match, but this is when is the last time that we've had a win at home? how long has it been since Nashville SC fans have been able to sell? I believe it's since September of last year, correct?
A home win?
Yeah, it was last season. So I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. It's been
unless
a
you count
while, and I
preseason.
think I think the crowd at Geodis Park definitely felt that. I think that change and like it was so obvious that once that first goal went in and the vibe changed immediately and how everything went down. And I thought like you can hear it, you can feel it, and then you can see it as well of how more into the game fans started feeling once that goal went in. And I think it was mostly just upset fans with the penalties and how everything went out. But afterwards, I thought after the goal and after even after the game ended, you saw more fans sticking around, more fans asking for pictures and autographs, and obviously more fans in the back line, sort of. Singing with the players and stuff like that. And it wasn't like a full house or anything. I don't want to put the wrong image out there, but it was more than usual.
Do we think that Nashville SC's two DPs missing penalties is a sign that Nashville SC is back?
Yes.
I don't know about that. I mean, we're going to talk
I'm
more
just
in deep.
saying
We're
because
going to
like
talk.
the best season in Nashville SC history featured multiple DPs missing penalties.
One, we could say that Tony Husband is not cursed. I think that's the first thing we can say. So shout out to Tony Husband. Thank you so much for predicting goals for Nashville SC this week. It was very nice. We were very worried about you being on the show, but thank you so much for doing that. I it is like, again, we're going to talk more about the match specifically. It is interesting. I was curious about that as well, Valer, and I'm curious about it from your eyes when it came to the amount of people that were uh, at Geodis, because it did seem a little bit more. It seemed a little bit taken aback at Geodis than. I think the first home opener, cold played a part of it, all that type of stuff. How empty did the stadium look like from your end?
It was fairly similar to the New England game. I don't think it was like super empty or anything like that. I think that upper rows weren't full, but I think the announced attendance was 24,000. I would say the actual attendance is probably closer to that 18 to 20,000. But it's not something just NSC does. It's a very common practice all around. I know we've talked about it many times that the numbers aren't necessarily accurate, but I think when you see Geodis Park was built with 30,000 seats, not to be filled right away with 30,000 seats. And I think that was always in mind that they will grow into that stadium. As far as MLS numbers go, I really can't have many concerns about the Nashville crowd. All things considered, now obviously winning solves everything. So you win a couple games at home, you score a couple goals. The next game, you'll have better weather. All these things play a factor. So I wouldn't be at a concerned level for that. However, we've seen what happens when this team loses. This is not a fan base that's been around for 100 years or 20 years or anything like that. This is a very new fan base, and I'm not saying this is a very Nashville thing, right? A lot of these teams are fairly new in terms of sports. If you look at like the Bills or the Eagles or these guys who've been around, I know it's football, but like they've been around for so long, and grandfather passed it to son, and son passed it to his son, and so on and so forth. This doesn't exist. This is what Nashville SC is building at the moment, and I think we all need to be a little patient with that in terms of the numbers. But one thing that Nashville SC can do is change how they play on the pitch, and the winning definitely helps with that, to where that those numbers will improve as the season progresses if they keep improving.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like winning solves everything is kind of a cop out. But in this case, it's not just that Nashville hasn't been winning; it's that when they haven't been winning, it's mostly been at home. So, like the last win was in September, yes, at home, but the last win before that was in June, and then the last one before that was in May and Gary Smith's last game. So Gary Smith was fired after beating Toronto 2-0, and this is the third win at home since that happened. So that's, that's a lot of
That's
times
not
going
very
to the
good.
yeah, that's a lot of times going to the park and the mood not being particularly great, and the team's not scoring goals. And so people have long memories. So it's going to take a little while to build it back up to where it was. Like the stadium's not new anymore, the team isn't what it was. And this is a market that is, used to Nashville being at least relevant. And now it's a new team that isn't relevant right now anymore. And so I think they get another performance or two like they had against Portland, plus the fact you'll get into spring and summer when people will start going to matches more regularly, generally speaking, because the other sports are wrapped up or their high school stuff is wrapped up or middle school stuff is wrapped up for the parents. You'll start to see the place fill out quite a bit more. It's a little bit upsetting, on some levels to sit there and watch a match and see it half empty when the team is playing well, like they were on Saturday. But shoot, I wasn't there Saturday, so what would really help? By the way, just a free thing to throw out there. You know what would really help with attendance for some of these matches earlier in the season?
Getting rid of the button.
Well, not waiting until January to have a real understanding when the schedule is going to be fully completed. That really helps people. Just throwing that out there. When you've got multiple sports going on and your schedule doesn't come out until December, January, it does make it hard on some of these matches earlier in the year. And that's something that no other league really has to deal with to the way that MLS does. And so it's a minor complaint really, but it does actually affect people scheduling things early in the season, like me, where I'm missing, 3 home games in the first part of the season because I didn't get the schedule until late December.
Steven, tell me more about this button situation you have going on.
How ridiculous this button is. Do you want me to go on a full, like, I could do this whole thing about
Just
the button.
Give me 30-second snippet. How about that?
All right. Hi, welcome to this session of Valera It Out with Steven Robinson as a guest speaker this time. I appreciate it. Folks, I completely understand that you need new ideas. You need new things to get people into the stadium, things to change specifically. A whole cop-out Atlanta style button / nail is not necessarily the way to go for a few reasons. One, the N doesn't light up until, what about people that want to take pictures with that light N before getting into the stadium? It's cool. It's a cool N. It's a cool. Yeah, but you can't see it when it's dark. And the thing is that it's cool when it's lit up. Why? It makes zero sense. Two, it is the most boring, sweet. You don't get to hammer a nail in. You get to press a button. This is Nashville, for God's sakes. A button? They couldn't do anything else. You can't smash a guitar. I know that was a Memphis thing, whatever. But you can't smash a guitar. You can't do something cooler than just hit a drum, a button. That's what you do?
Well, that's what you say now until Nashville's sponsored by Staples and they use the money to bring in, I don't know, Mbappe.
What about like a Benjamin Button play there? I don't know how that would work, but just something along those lines I think would be good. I want to go on the record saying I don't genuinely care about this, but I am curious how it plays out on an afternoon game. I am really curious.
I think it's dumb, personally.
Who was the button pusher this
it's
last
Sean
game?
Johnson.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Which cool. Had Sheamus first.
Last game was Sheamus, but they didn't give the person this game the mic like they gave to Sheamus, and I think people were okay with that. I don't know. I think people were okay with that. I'll just stop at that.
Cool. I did better. I still don't understand why the button is there, but that's fine. Look, I'll throw my complaints in. I've been a part of things that have failed miserably when it comes to pregame things that I have personally developed myself. I have no problem being on that. I'm just trying to help from your perspective.
I will say this. Nashville SC has been undefeated at home since the button was introduced.
Yeah.
And
the only important thing, Steven, is that when you woke up Sunday, it was blue and gold.
Now that's
in my defense, that was never my choice. Okay, I swear I hated that. It's fine. See,
shout out to Tom Waits and shout out to the 2018 Nashville SC heads.
Yeah, let's move on. That's it. This is done.
I think this is perfect. In all reality, I could go on about this button, but we have another button that we need to press, and that's the W button, because Nashville just won their first match, and we need to talk more about that. We're going to do that next, right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. Welcome back to Pharmaceutical Soccer. I'm so happy that y'all are here at Pharma Soccer on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And also want to talk to you about 615soccer.com. Please make sure you check that out. Content has been going crazy over there. It has been so much fun to see. So please make sure you do check that out. Valer did a cool interview with Ahmed Kassem over at 615 Soccer. So please make sure you check that out. You interviewed him at the presser, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a press conference, but yeah, no interview, just a press conference. But overall, we've had some really good player interviews. We've had some player specific stories. We've had some tactical breakdowns. And Steven's right. I mean, the content is great. One of the things that I work on every week is I send a newsletter for everything you guys missed. And if anybody missed anything, they can click on it and read it. It's once a week. You can sign up for it. So just sign up, even if it's for free. Sign up, even if you don't want to pay. But we highly recommend that you do pay, because we fully believe that you get your money's worth. And I think if you speak to any of our paying members, they'll tell you get your money's worth. So we'd appreciate if you can a few bucks towards us. But if you want to just sign up for free, you're welcome to do so. 615soccer.com. Just spell it out, the numbers as well. So 615soccer.com.
I think it's one thing I didn't realize how awesome it would be to have a Discord chat of all of our people that do follow along when it comes to 615 Soccer. Like, just being able to be there for match day discussion. I felt so much more at home just being able to have that.
That is one of my favorites, Steven. I mean, like, all the random conversations are fun, but also like just like having a place to discuss just random NSC stuff and also just during the match. You're right. I mean, it's really fun to kind of see people interact. And honestly, the Discord is pretty lively, and it's even kind of surpassed my expectations for it. So I'll stop the selling pitch, but really try it for yourself for a month for $3 and see if you like it. I think you will.
But one thing we did discuss there was Nashville's 2-0 win against Portland with goals from Andy Nahar and Ahmed Kassem. I think first, Valer, and maybe you check this while I kind of bring this up, did any of our people that did do the goal prop bets, did anybody put Andy Nahar's first goal?
I haven't checked. I know none of us did on this show.
Well, I know
I'm
that.
checking right now.
I'll check.
Nobody did.
All right, I figured. All right.
Nobody did? Yeah.
But yes, Nashville getting the 2-0 win. I think the first thing to talk about is the lineup, because I think it's the first time that we saw a little bit of change from BJ Callahan's system after that 2-0 loss to Red Bull. Coming into this match, you could tell that there was an emphasis on attacking play. 1000%. BJ wanted to change. He made the change where moved Eddie Tagsith back more to a kind of defensive midfield attacking role. Having Ahmed Kassem, in the starting lineup, he was looking. He knew that we needed to score goals, and the lineup kind of showed that.
Yeah, I think one thing that Nashville SC players and sometimes BJ Callahan kind of alluded to is that they scored in both of those matches. Now, both of them were called for offside. The New England one a lot more questionable, I guess, than the Red Bull one, which was fairly clear. But those attacking plays were happening. They just weren't able to finish them. And then the creativity was also there, maybe not at the same height as the Portland game, but at a high level nonetheless. But the way they ended the Red Bulls games, it was enough of a momentum that when you do come back home, you want to be on the front foot. And we've seen this BJ Callahan team be on the front foot even away from home. But specifically when you're at home, you haven't scored yet, you haven't won yet. You definitely want to keep that momentum from the Red Bull game. And the only change from the end of the Red Bull game was Teal Bunbury not be playing. But the rest of it was the same sort of way that they ended the Red Bull game. And I thought the biggest change, you're right, Steven, was the Tagseth slotting next to Yazbek, where I thought it cleared things out in terms of what the responsibilities and roles of those two players are. I think when Meyer and Corcoran were there, maybe those responsibilities were a little bit of, we're not saying those two players are not good or that they're not going to have their chance, but I don't think either of them was slotted to start 2 games at the start of the season. And I think when you're kind of thrown into that environment right away, sometimes that could, not look very good on you, to where you get somebody like Yazbek, who's played with BJ for a few months now, and then somebody like Taxath, who is, a known pro, who is slotted to start. I think those roles were so clear to them of what they were supposed to do, both going forward and defensively, that it kind of ended up, working out for the rest of the team, because that's the spine, that's what building everything. And to clarify on that, I mean, Yazbek was part particularly playing more defensively. Even, he would go up and he would pass the ball and he would shoot and all that. But Taxet was more of like, I'm gonna run around, do everything, and Yasbak was more of like the calming presence behind him most times. So I think that's something that was missing before those two players played next to each other, and I think that's what provided a lot of the build-up play, or provided the platform to have more build-up play for Nashville SC.
Yeah.
So, Clay, what worked for you when it came to let's kind of
Well,
let's break this up in positives a little bit. What worked for you in that kind
well,
of lineup and the way they went about it?
I mean, well, it's to go back. I was just going to reiterate Blair's point here a little bit, which is that in this league, it is a depth league. The teams that are deep win, and the teams that are not deep struggle. And when you're starting, not only are you starting a rookie in Wyatt Meyer, you're starting a rookie not playing in his natural position. That rolls downhill. Like it, so getting people back healthy, or at least back to play, being able to play closer to full matches, makes your team necessarily better. I don't know that we're going to see very much Wyatt Meyer the rest of the season unless people get hurt. And that's not a dig on Wyatt Meyer. That's just the way it works for rookies in this league. I think that we'll see more Matt Corcoran, but I do think that as his team gets healthy, this is the lineup that you're going to be looking at. And I think that the results sort of show that. These are guys playing in positions that they were playing in probably in preseason, both behind closed doors and in front of people, and kind of being able to slot people into their more natural positions. And now we've talked about BJ being a little bit positionless when it comes to like attacking roles and things like that. But generally speaking, there is some merit to people playing in their correct positions no matter what, and so that leads to better results and better attacking results. Now we sort of talk past this point a lot on this show, but MLS home field does play a massive, massive, massive role in results. And even more so than some like major European leagues where it's definitely emphasized more. Like home being on your home field in your own stadium has a direct correlation to your team being successful. And Nashville hasn't been successful in their own stadium, which is the reason Nashville has struggled. You're looking at a Portland team that had one good performance earlier this year, but is a team that Nashville should handle playing at home, and they came in and they absolutely handled it. You saw Nashville on the front foot. You saw Nashville pushing. I mean, they missed 2 penalties, but the fact that they got 2 penalties shows that they're pushing to score more goals, and that's something that has been missing. You haven't seen Nashville come out on the front foot really in a couple years playing at home. Now, real quick, because I know that we got to talk about some other things, but when Nashville was pretty good, like 2021, 2020, that era, one of the things that I used to joke about was that Nashville was better if they gave up a goal first. Because when they gave up a goal first, they came back and they pushed and they played like a team chasing a game at home. And it's kind of nice to sit there and see Nashville play like a team chasing a game at home when it's a draw, because we haven't seen that as often in the last few years.
Well, and I want to talk a little bit of how they did that, because I think that's very interesting. And Valer, I don't think I necessarily have the data, and you might have a little bit more insight to the data specifically. But watching that game from my eyes, what I saw was center back to fullback to up forward. Like I saw they were going direct from the get-go. That ball to Sam Surridge that led to the initial penalty. The first 2 penalties were balls over the top specifically. I want to talk about, and I think it's one of the things that worked. I think both Indy Nahar and Daniel Lovitz were on another level on Saturday.
I have a good stat about this actually because I was thinking about that. So I know I'm cutting off a layer, but it's worth. But you mentioned it specifically. So the last time that both fullbacks had been involved in goal contributions was when Shaq Moore assisted Taylor Washington in the win over Montreal. Was that 2023 or was it last
23,
season?
yeah,
Yeah, but it
23,
was
yeah.
a long time. The last time that both fullbacks had a goal contribution in separate goals was 2022 against Austin FC. And that might be
Wow.
the stat that tells the most about Nashville attacking was how their fullbacks were actually involved in two different goals.
Well, yeah, and I think from the back it was crazy how, like, from the back they were the first two to have the ball specifically, and they were pushing it up. Andy Nahar has way more skill and speed than I even realized when he did come into Nashville. But I think one of the other things I noticed besides that is how far they pushed up on the attack. There was times that Daniel Lovitz was right at the top of the box in the middle, where I'm like, wait, is that Daniel Lovitz? I had no idea. So you could tell that BJ definitely has a plan for those fullbacks in attack, and I think it worked extremely well.
Yeah, and I think having two quote unquote defensive midfielders kind of helps with the forward the way they move forward for the fullbacks because there's a little bit more cover than if you just had one player there. I will say another thing that worked for me. I think we talked about the fullbacks enough, and you guys did a sufficient job, so good job. But I think one thing that worked for me, and I kind of talked about it during the game on my socials, is the counter pressing. It was I mean, it was probably the best counter pressing I've seen this team ever have. As soon as they lost the ball, there were two or three guys on the Portland player. And how many times did they force a position switch out of that? I mean, I don't even need to look at the stats, but I know the stats will back up my point here. Like the amount of times that Portland got the ball from Nashville SC, whether it was a wide shot or whatever it may be, Portland played two or three passes or played one pass and immediately lost the ball. It just kept happening the entire game. Or Portland will get the ball back, and then the same player they will dispossess, and Nashville SC will get the ball again. And I think that to me is like a testament of how hardworking these players are, because it's not just the defenders doing this, it's not just the midfielders doing this, and it's a team effort. And I talked about this because I saw Sam Surridge doing it, and I asked BJ about it, and I told him, I've seen strikers not give a crap about that stuff. It's just not gonna matter. And BJ's answer, and Sam Surridge was the opposite of that. Sam Surridge was leading the counter pressing, and BJ's answer to that is that we all worked for each other, right? And if we were to gain the ball, which is very elementary to explain, but like I think it makes such a clear sense. If what he said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, if we get the ball, then that creates more chances going forward. And especially if you get the ball in their own half by winning it back, because you already have some players that are out of play already because they're trying to attack, right? So, it's an incentive for Sam Surridge and Hani Mukhtar and Ahmed Qasim and all these other players to counter press, because it is eventually going to help them in attack and creating those chances and scoring goals.
Well, and it's the personnel that's also a big part of that as well. Like it's not just it's the so like obviously Dax McCarty is beloved in Nashville. One of the things that makes Dax McCarty one of the best midfielders to ever come through MLS was his ability to go defense to offense, turn it over, get it upfield, get the attack going. And so it's the press, but it's also being effective going forward. Sometimes Nashville's been good at forcing the turnover, but they haven't been effective at getting anything out of that turnover. And even if they haven't scored goals in some of these games this year, we have seen them get high percentage, or at least certainly higher percentage chances doing that. But Nashville also did play well with the ball too, so we're starting to see like a more full balanced picture of a team that with the ball at their feet essentially.
Yeah, and I think two players to talk about when it comes to Nashville being really good with the ball. Of course, we got to talk about our new bona fide star here in Nashville when it comes to Eddie Tagseth. I mean, I just looked at like where people think he's starting to make some. We knew he was kind of going to be that player here in Nashville. He's kind of making the ripple effect league wide when it comes to the way that he kind of operates, the little energizer bunny that could. Did you ever expect Eddie to be this kind? He's kind of living up to the expectations that we brought him in for.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the most surprising part of it all is that well, maybe not surprising, but it's like it's rarely ever that you identify a player and you're like, oh, this player is going to make an impact. And game one makes an impact, game two makes an impact, game three makes an impact. And that's been Eddie Texas since he stepped a foot on that pitch for Nashville SC. So you're right, Stephen. The expectations were fairly high just because those who saw him in training or saw him in the preseason match or wherever, anybody who saw him, even the first like 15, 20 minutes of that first New England game, they already set those expectations on him, and he delivered every single time. And now he delivers even with an assist. You know, I've explained it before. I've talked about it before. He doesn't only do the physical part of running and covering ground and all that, but he also has a technical ability, and that's such a hard balance to find these days.
There are few absolutes in Nashville SC world as Nashville SC fans loving to cheer a blonde dude in his 20s. They are, if you are a blonde dude in your 20s and you're playing for NSC, you're going to be a star. It's just the way it's worked out. So I think I will say, to kind of hammer that in a little bit more, you do see an adjustment period for most people who come in from Europe. And one of the more impressive things early on, because things people can get figured out in this league too. So it's something to watch in the next couple of months. Seeing both Kasim and Tagseth come in and be pretty much immediately worthwhile is something that you don't always see. Like, even though Surge scored on his debut, it was kind of an up and down. His first 6 months in Nashville. I mean, Hani Mukhtar, better than he got credit for in 2020, but no one looks at 2020 thinking that's a guy who's a future MVP. So seeing two guys kind of hit the ground running like those two have is really a credit to Mike Jacobs, because that hasn't happened a lot, not just in Nashville, that hasn't happened a lot in MLS. And so if they can maintain that sort of momentum, that's a real feather in the cap for that for those signings.
Yeah, I think one of the like it because we can go right on to Ahmed Kassem. I think one of the things that's interesting to me when it comes to just kind of seeing the way that he operates and it works. When he was brought in, I thought that he was just going to be only this dynamic winger. The fast dynamic winger is the only thing you see. But I think on Saturday, you saw that he's actually a very direct player who couldn't get up in the air and get his head on the ball, obviously, as he scored, to fit a little bit more in that forward position. And that's not something I was expecting from him right off the bat, but he looked up to the task, even in that narrow kind of space.
Yeah, I mean, look, he tried all game, and I think he was able to. He hit the post right before the goal, right? And I think he has multiple ways of scoring and multiple positions to play. I will say, I think he does have a little bit to go on the physical front in terms of how match fit he is, and that's not a knock on him or anything. I think that'll come with time. But when you look at who he's paired with, Eddie Taxeth and Patrick Yazbak and Alex Muyl around him, he looks like the less active of the four. That doesn't mean he's not active, but he's paired with like very active players. And I think for a BJ Callahan system to fully sort of take shape, he's gonna need to not match their difficult their activity level, but maybe try to help out a little bit more backwards. But that's not a criticism, really. You're okay to free one guy if the other guys are doing the work. That's not a bad thing necessarily. But look, getting off the mark, like Clay said in your first start, is not a common thing, and it's honestly, he's another guy who had really high expectations for a 21-year-old and has been able to deliver.
Well, and the other side of that too is that, look, we were talking about a team built on depth. One of the positions that we looked at the most as like in need is having someone else that can play up top. Now, in an ideal world, that's not where Kasem is playing, but it is a place where he can play. And so scoring in a way that, a striker scores sometimes, scoring in different ways, showing that you can do different things with the ball. That is important because, after Sam Sturridge, and I know that he gets a lot, I think, of unjustified stick, Teal Bunbury is next up in that spot, in a natural place. So having people that you can slot in that role that can be effective and that can score goals and that can find ways of also helping other people score goals is really important for Nashville's long-term success this season. And we were told that he could kind of play anywhere up top or anywhere along the front there and be successful. And he's showing that he kind of can. He can get in those spaces and can score goals that you'd expect, strikers to score, in addition to getting out wide and creating chances. Which is also, to be fair, that's also something that you don't see a lot from Surge, but Surge can get out wide a little bit, and he has shown aspects of that over time. So that goes more to that sort of positionless philosophy that VJ Callahan has kind of hinted at over times. But at the end of the day, you kind of want people playing where they naturally play.
All right, we've been extremely positive here. It's been fun to be positive because Nashville did win 2-0 at home, and it was something that we needed to see from Nashville. But I think there was a lot to talk about when it comes to this is an unpolished team still, to say the least. I think that's the way to put it. So, Valer, what needs to be polished up in your opinion? What needs work first?
I think this is the easiest sort of thing to figure out, and it's playing out of the back. I mean, there were so many close calls every single game, and that's the nature of the way Nashville SC plays. If you're gonna try to build from the back, there are gonna be close calls. But I do think there is some improvement to be done there, and I think if you talk to VJ Callahan, he's gonna tell you the same thing. And it's not just Joe Willis. I'm not saying that. Before his assist, Dan Lovitz played a couple of dangerous passes backward
Yep.
that just almost gave Portland a goal. And I think it's stuff like that needs to be polished a little bit better. It's not quite in the category of like, everything is on fire, but it is nonetheless not a strength for this team that it is trying to make it a strength. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time, and I don't know if it's going to come with a personnel change in the future. But it's something that clearly, when I look at this game, is the number one thing I'll highlight as something to improve.
Yeah, it was one of the things that I saw too, and I noticed where there was a couple close calls. And I think if you are playing against a better team than Portland, you are going to get capitalized. Like Lionel Messi is going to read those passes all day long and capitalize on that. And I think that's one of the things that Nashville, I mean, it's one of the things I do hope gets polished up from Nashville's perspective. Another thing I want to ask you about Valer specifically, Clay kind of talked about like the consistency of like it's really nice to see Eddie and Kassem come in from a consistency perspective. I want to talk about the other three players in that forward kind of role: Alex Muil, Hani Mukhtar, and Sam Surridge, where they did seem like there was some good interplay in some ways, but when it comes to their finishing and the way that they're passing the ball, it does look like there needs to be some polishing on that left side as well.
Yeah, that's fair, and I think they all three of them had their chances and they weren't able to score. Obviously, two of them have very clear chances that they weren't able to score, but I think I'm curious to see how Hani Mukhtar fares in the position behind the strikers if Nashville SC does end up putting two strikers up top and put Hani Mukhtar on the left and Eddie Taxeth or Rahman Qasim on the right. I think I'm curious about how that looks like and what sort of opportunities that opens up for him. I still not sold on him as a striker. Now, to be fair, in this role, it is very versatile. He goes around all around the pitch and he's kind of playing as a free player, really. But I am curious if he was to stick to a position behind two strikers, he might be able to deliver a little bit better. But I think one thing that didn't work at all and is the fact that the two penalties were missed, right? And those are gimmies. Those are you have to score those. And to be fair to Hani, I thought he had a pretty good penalty. Sam, not so much, but regardless, I think there's improvement there, not just in terms of penalty kicks, but just overall in terms of finishing for those three players and honestly everybody else on the team too. I mean, that game could have been 4-5-6-0 easily.
Uh, I think there's a few things. I know that a lot of people are starting to press the panic button on Hani Mukhtar. I think it is also worth noting that Hani Mukhtar typically isn't the fastest starter to a season in his time in Nashville. So I think that there's been some promising signs there. I will say that only two DPs missed penalties, and against Philadelphia Union in 2021, all three DPs missed penalties. So there is that. So things things aren't as bad as they could be, I guess.
I mean, they could be. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the case. Like, I think you're right, Blair. I don't think Hani's penalty was bad. I think it was a really good save. Sam's, on the other hand, I don't know. Maybe put it back in Hani's hands to get his confidence back up. I think that was one of the things that I was thinking. Like, it wasn't a bad penalty. It was just, to me, it was just a really good save. But who knows? I mean, Nashville's going to have the chance to build on this with a very, very tough match at Philadelphia coming up here. And we're going to talk about that, as well as some Geodis Park announcements. A nice event coming to Geodis Park. We're going to talk about that next, right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer.
We are a rudderless ship here at the pharmacy. At the pharmacy, pharmaceutical soccer is back. Stephen Robinson has disappeared to parts unknown. Hopefully, he will return next week, but we shall see. We're not totally sure where he is, other than he's in the general vicinity of Loudon, Virginia. Now, we've got a few important things to talk about here, one of which is Nashville SC does have a match coming up this week. We also have some news broken by Valaire and Ben Wright over at 615 Soccer. Announcement forthcoming. Maybe it will be announced by the time that you hear this,
It
but
is.
maybe it won't
It
be.
just announced this morning. It just
Oh,
announced this
really?
morning.
There you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
go. This is what I get for, like, not being all over the internet. So, Valaire, what was it that you guys broke yesterday?
Yeah, so on Sunday we broke the news that Nashville SC will play at Geodis Park. Believe it or not, no, the U.S. men's national team will be playing another game at Geodis Park. They came in last year and no, 2 years ago now, I think, and played against Ghana at Geodis Park. So they enjoyed that experience enough to come back, and they'll be playing against Switzerland this time. A little bit of a tougher opponent. They beat Ghana 4-1 pretty easily in that game. So I'm curious to see how they get up against Switzerland. It was news, like Clay said, was broken by myself and Ben Wright, but now it's official as of this morning. The game will be on June 10th, and it will be again at Geodis Park. And looks like Clay has something to do, and he will be missing that game. But some of us will be there in attendance. Tickets, if you're planning to go there to go to the game, uh, their pre-sales will start on Tuesday. So if you're listening to this day off release, pre-sale has started today, and then the public ticket sale will start on Friday. So yeah, it's cool to have the national teams here. Nashville had the women's team last year do a double header as well here at Geodis Park. Always cool to see that that stadium being used for something other than Nashville SC. And obviously, with the national team, with the men's national team, this will be in preparation for the Gold Cup. So it will be a maybe tougher, more more of a first team roster than usual for a Gold Cup, I think, just because they don't have qualification because they've already qualified for 2026 World Cup. But it will be around the same time as the Club World Cup. So any of those US players who are playing in the Club World Cup, chances are they will not be with the USMNT, but overall it should be pretty close to a first choice 11.
It's actually interesting for multiple reasons because you rarely see U.S. men's national team play big European teams anymore since Nations League has come around. Now, some people may have had an inkling about this game a little while ago, and some people may have made an educated guess that the U.S. would be playing Switzerland. So feel pretty good about nailing that. But the real bummer is that I'll be watching that game in Switzerland because I will be in Switzerland on June 10th of all places. So that's a
Well,
pretty like
that's interesting.
yeah, that's a pretty wild set of circumstances for the Switzerland national team to be in Nashville and me be. I mean, great trade by the country of Switzerland to get me over there to send their whole national team here. So, but yeah, it's always great. I mean, Nashville has a pretty good reputation. Those that know me know that I've worked 27 or 28 matches for the U.S. Soccer Federation, mostly in the Southeast, but certainly a lot of those in Nashville. Everyone with USSF has always talked about how much they love playing in Nashville, whether it was at Nissan Stadium or Geodis. So it's nice to see that trend has continued. The women's national team has played here twice, 2-3 times actually, since the last time the men's team came through. Obviously, part of that is the push that Nashville has around women's soccer as well. But it is a good sign for the city as a soccer community that the national team wants to continue playing in Nashville. And they'd kind of fallen in love with having matches in Cincinnati and Austin all the time. So it's nice to kind of also get back into that rotation. So
And
looking forward to watching it from. Uh, I think I'll be in Lucerne when that game is played.
just to kind of give you a full picture here, the USMNT will also be playing Turkey in Hartford, Connecticut, 3 days before. So June 7th. That's the other game.
And that was the other country that I had wound up. But that would have been an interesting match from uh, from a perspective of just who lives in Nashville playing Turkey.
Yep. Uh,
All right,
so
well,
the league, the
moving
league
on.
is going on. While Clay, you're not in your hosting game today. What's going on? I have to remind him that he's hosting this segment.
I
But
I'm sorry. I was just thinking about the the last question. Sorry.
yet, just a couple of interesting things around the league that we've noticed. I mean, one of which we'll come back to. But Inter Miami still wins, even without Messi, and even with the other team having a red card. With them having a red card. Um, you know, it, talent is very evident there, and I think they're gonna keep doing it. Um, a couple other storylines. I think the biggest one is LA Galaxy really struggling to start the season. I think to me that's a bit of a bad luck because they obviously lost Ricky Puig to injury late last season, but also they had to trade away a bunch of their assets, and I think that kind of what uh that they're reaping, I guess, not the benefits of that, whatever the other word is. So LA Galaxy starting off the season really rough. They lost at home to St. Louis 3-0. That's their second loss at home this season. They didn't lose a single home game last season. So that's kind of the difference between where they were last season to where they are now. We'll see if they can pull through. And I think that the other big storyline right now is the perfect team, Philadelphia Union, who are leading the Eastern Conference, leading MLS, and they are on absolute tear. They have 3 wins from 3. They've scored, I want to say, 10 goals already.
Yep.
Four in the first 2 games, and then 2 in the next one. To be fair, that last game was against the New England Revs, but a team Nashville struggled to beat, or couldn't beat. But overall, the Philadelphia Union, I think a bit of a surprise based on they fire head coach Jim Curtin last year, and then kind of come in as this power again in the Eastern Conference.
I think yeah the just as everyone predicted, Philadelphia has got 9 points from 9, and the Vancouver Whitecaps have got 9 points from 9. Uh, Philly's also they beat Cincinnati as well. They put 4 goals past Cincinnati. I have to think it's a bit of fool's gold just on the basis of like this just doesn't really happen in the league all that often. I think a lot of teams, a lot of people were kind of down on Philly, including everyone on the show going into this season. So I do wonder how much of this is sustainable. That being said, you know, uh, form matters, and Philly is the form team in all of MLS right now. And Nashville, not really. I mean, they're coming off a good performance, but I do think like this is the first like kind of where is Nashville that you really have. And I think I would have said that if Philly wasn't the form team because Philly's still a decent team, but like this is the first time we're looking at a Nashville team that is as close to healthy as they've been uh, coming through preseason and the first part of the season, as close to a first 11 as we've seen, and a Philly team that's in form. So like if Nashville can go to Philly and get something out of that game, I think that really sparks the conversation that Nashville is into this new era and that things are turning. They are turning a corner that a lot of national pundits didn't think Nashville would do this season.
Yeah, I think the play style is fairly close to the Red Bulls. Now it's not the same. It's not as hectic per se, but it's fairly close to the Red Bull and it's fairly close to Nashville. Very very close to Nashville, I would say, for Philly. So I'm curious how that ends up and if there's any improvement from the Red Bull match. You're still playing away from home in Chester, Pennsylvania, and you're coming off this win where you're excited and you're happy and sort of vibes are good, but you're going to the league leaders, and I think you have to give them enough respect, but at the same time have enough belief in yourself. and I think that's something that Nashville SC will have to balance going into this game. But I'm with you, Clay. If Nashville SC win this or have a really good performance and maybe get a draw, it might be a statement that needs to, especially if it's a win. I think that would be a statement of Nashville SC are here to play and Nashville SC are here to prove something. But we'll see how it goes. Again, I'm a little worried of playing out of the back with the way the Philly plays. I think that might cause Nashville SC some problem, like it did with the Red Bulls a few times. All in all, here's my prediction. I think it's gonna be a Philadelphia 2-1 win. Let's just go like that, with Nashville SC scorer being Hani Mukhtar. He'll get his. You know what? And then I think Philly will get a penalty. I don't know why I'm predicting that, but that's what I'm predicting. Also, go to 615soccer.com and follow me personally at Valer Shabila on all socials. I have all sorts of coverage coming up. I have a really cool story on Huntsville coming up too this week. So make sure to tune in and stay tuned and follow along.
Speaking of other things called 615, do you want to promote them as well?
Kicking It 615. We need coaches, y'all. So Kicking It 615 is a nonprofit organization that helps kids who can't afford soccer in Nashville play soccer free of charge, organize soccer. Learn more about us at ki615.org or at Kicking It 615 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We need your help volunteering, donating, all sorts of stuff. So please hit us up. Again, that's ki615.org and at Kicking It 615.
And just imagine right now, you turn around, you go help coach Kicking at 615. You know, there's a 6-year-old there. You help coach that 6-year-old. You find out that they're a great player. And maybe, 10 years later, you hear about that same player playing in the Nashville SC Academy. And maybe 2-3 years after that, you see them playing at Nashville SC. You'll be able to go all to your friends and say, this kid is playing soccer because I coached him with Kicking at 615. Don't you want to be that guy or girl or, whatever? You can be that whatever at Kicking at 615. You can go coach and bring the next star through Nashville SC. And I'm just trying to be welcoming to all, Valer. You don't need to do that hand motion.
He landed the plane. We're good. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah, but you could be the person that creates the next Nashville SC star at Kicking It 615. Anyway, you can follow me at Clay LaSoul on Instagram or Twitter, and check out Nashville Soccer Archive. And I honestly, I feel like 2-1 is probably the right move. I think that Nashville is going to put in a pretty good fight. I think we'll see an early goal. I think Nashville will get on the board early, and Philadelphia will start to turn the screw. Maybe they'll get something before the half, but the second half, they're going to find something and they'll pull it out late. And that is what it's like watching Everton play sometimes. And I just feel like that's what I'm signing up for watching the Philly match on Saturday. But we'll see how it shakes out. Either way, let us know your Philly score predictions. Let us know whatever you think about Pharma Soccer. Let us know where you think Steven is, because we're frankly a little bit worried. And hopefully he'll be back here next week at Pharmaceutical Soccer. Also, please check us out at Pharma Soccer. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, 615soccer.com, pharmasoccer.com, where you can get Pharma Soccer merch. Check it all out. We'll see you next week.